Hi, and welcome to the Child and Family Development Podcast. I'm Gretchen Hunter, a licensed psychologist and your host today. And here with me is my very special guest.
Hello, I'm Darius Hampton. I'm one of the licensed clinical mental health counselors here at Child and Family Development. Mhm.
We're going to talk about a very important topic. How can we better support the mental health of boys and young men? So, for parents, maybe you're raising a son who seems more angry than sad, or maybe you've watched your teenager pull away from the family. Maybe you're worried about anxiety, social media, loneliness, or motivation for schoolwork. And maybe you've wondered whether therapy is needed or could help, but you question whether your son would even talk to a therapist. Um, as a licensed psychologist, it's so important to dive into the research on this topic. And research shows that counseling can be a highly effective for boys and young men. But it also tells us something important. Boys often engage differently than girls in therapy, and understanding those differences can help parents provide better support. So, we're going to talk about the research about boys' mental health, why many boys might struggle to ask for help, what effective therapy could look like, and how parents can help. So, Darius, start us off. Why is this such an important topic?
Well, for many reasons, I wanted to picture starting off with like a little story so far. Just imagine a 15-year-old boy. From the outside, he seems pretty cool. He seems okay. He's going to school, he's participating in a lot of activities, playing sports, spending time online with friends. When people ask him how he's doing, he just says, I'm fine. I'm fine. But lately, his parents have his parents have noticed changes. He's more irritable. His grades are slipping. Spends more time alone. He stopped doing the things that he likes to do as well. He's very short-tempered with his family, and when anyone asks what's wrong, he simply says, "Nothing's wrong. Like I'm fine." And one of the most important things we know about boys' mental health is this. Emotional distress doesn't always look like sadness. It can also look like anger. It can look like, defensiveness, withdrawal, stonewalling, risk-taking behaviors, irritability, excessive gaming, substance use, and conflict with others. Um, of course, this can make mental health struggles harder to recognize. Parents may think he's just being a teenager, being kind of dismissive, or while that can be true at times, sometimes those behaviors are signs of anxiety, depression, loneliness, or stress as well.
And one thing that I've found in terms of evaluating and treating boys with depression or anxiety is that parents ask, why can't he just tell me what's going on? And the answer is kind of complicated. A lot of it has to do with societal message. So, from a young age, many boys received subtle and not so subtle messages about masculinity, like be tough, handle it yourself, don't complain, boys don't cry, stay strong. And none of those ideas are harmful by themselves. We want to raise children to be resilient and to be able to solve problems by themselves. Those are valuable qualities. The problem comes when boys start to believe that having emotions at all is a weakness, or that asking for help means that they're a failure. And so boys learn to hide vulnerable emotions like fear or shame or loneliness. And they tend to express emotions that feel safer, like anger or irritability. And so, as parents, it's helpful to remember that sometimes the behavior you're seeing is not the primary problem, it's the signal. And the question becomes, what emotion is underneath this behavior?
Yeah, there's another common misconception as well. People often assume boys don't want help. The research has says something different, though. Of course, most boys do want support. They just want it in ways that feels more comfortable, respectful, and consistent with how they naturally interact with each other. Many boys aren't resistant to help. I'll be the first one to admit, like, I'll ask anybody for help anytime, no matter what. They're resistant to feeling judged, or they're resistant to feeling forced. They're resistant to conversations that feel awkward or natural. Sometimes boys may feel like, well, I don't want to be a burden to somebody. I don't want to feel like, in lower value. there's such an important distinction because it means parents don't need to convince boys that emotions exist. Instead, parents can focus on creating environments where talking feels safe and understood as well. So when many people imagine therapy, they commonly think of, whether it be what media tells us or shows us, it's like, oh man, I'm just sitting down in a chair and some, person is just having their notebook out judging me or, telling whatever my story is like in that hour. But for some boys, it works beautifully, and for many others, a different approach might work better as well. So, research suggests boys often engage more effectively when therapy is collaborative, structured, active, practical, and goal-oriented. A therapist might spend less time asking, like, "How do you feel?" or just more exploring into, like, "What happened this week? What challenged you? What are some successes that you've had? What do you want to change?" One of the things I know I ask my boys at least is, what's a small win that we build up into big victories? So that makes it have a better picture in their mind and out there, like when we draw it on the whiteboard or what have you, too. Um, Many boys appreciate having a clear purpose. They were very direct people, I should say. They often respond well to therapy when it's focused on like building skills or solving problems, improving relationships. In addition, like managing stress and reaching personal goals. Like I said, very driven, kind of achievement marking as well. So in other words, therapy doesn't have to feel like an emotional interrogation, like what did you do or how did this go? All this stuff. No, it can just simply feel like coaching for their life.
I think that makes so much sense because that coaching narrative, really might feel more comfortable and natural because it mimics what they receive in sports or, with a teacher. I think that that makes a lot of sense to make it more comfortable and easy to engage. Um, and wanting to talk about anxiety and depression as clinical disorders. And so for depression first, many parents really expect depression to look like sadness. And sometimes it does, but it can often look different. Things that parents might notice would be really constant irritability, increased anger, a decreased fuse, loss of motivation, lack of enjoyment, social isolation, increased risk-taking behavior, declining grades, and sleep problems. A boy might not say, I'm depressed. Instead, he might say, I'm tired. Nobody gets me. What's the point? Leave me alone. And so research shows that therapies like cognitive behavioral therapy or CBT can be extremely effective. CBT helps boys identify unhelpful thinking patterns and replace them with healthier ways of understanding situations. It can help them reconnect with activities that improve mood, confidence, and functioning. And it really is wonderful because it helps give kids and teens concrete tools they can actually use in everyday life. And anxiety is another frequent condition that can be overlooked. Many anxious boys don't appear nervous. Instead, they seem angry, perfectionistic, avoidant, controlling, or easily frustrated. Some boys work really hard to hide anxiety, and then others manage it by avoiding situations that trigger uncomfortable feelings. So, parents might notice when a child suddenly wants to quit sports, avoid social situations, skip school, or just withdraw from challenges. And
Mm.
CBT is one of the most effective treatments for this too. It helps boys learn that anxiety can be managed rather than just avoided. And over time, they can build confidence by facing fears gradually and more successfully.
Yes, and those are effective too with anxiety and depression. And one fascinating finding from research and clinical practice is that many boys open up more during activities. Think about your own son in this situation. Would he rather have a serious conversation sitting across the table or while doing shooting hoops or throwing the football around, walking the dog? driving the car, even washing the car, building something together, playing catch. A lot of times boys want to work with their hands, so it keeps them, motivated and it keeps them occupied as well. Many boys find the side-by-side conversations easier than face-to-face. Like I said, it's less intimidating per se, and they feel a little bit more free. You start to see that in their body language. Their posture opens up. They may smile a little bit, like their face starts to broaden and open up as well. That less pressure, intensity, like we talked about. Parents often discover that their best conversations happen unexpectedly during the shared activities. The activity becomes like a bridge to connection as well. We also can't discuss boys' mental health without acknowledging a difficult reality. Young males are at significantly higher risk of death by suicide. Many parents worry that asking about suicidal thoughts will put ideas in a child's head. Research shows that is not true. In fact, asking directly and calmly can be protective, and definitely calmly, the way, especially how you present it with young males and everything, it's not about what you said, it's about how you present it, how you share it with them that is important. So, with specific language, of course. But questions like, have things gotten so hard that you've thought about hurting yourself, can open up important conversations. If concerns arise, professional support should be sought out immediately. No time to waste. Don't feel like it's dismissive. No, this is their mental health as well. You are part of the team with them. One of the strongest protective factors against suicide is connection. Boys need to know that they matter, that they are not only heard, but they are listened to. And they need to know that their struggles can be talked about openly. The 988 or 988 is the National Suicide Hotline. So, it's an also important lesson from the research is the influence of male role models. Boys are constantly observing, whether it's being through school with their teachers, coaches, administrative staff, of course, fathers, grandfathers, uncles, older brothers, mentors, barbers. I know for me personally, going to the barbershop to get my haircut is sometimes a point of therapy for me too, because you can breathe for a bit too. So having these huge role models in their life is super beneficial for not only their mental health, their emotional health, and they can become stronger and more emotionally mature men. When boys see respected men talking honestly about stress, setbacks, challenges, and emotions, they learn that strength and vulnerability can coexist. Parents don't need to model perfection. I think, especially nowadays, we don't want to strive for perfection. You want to strive for progress. And even times when you may have a setback and everything, like I said, using proper language. Don't even use the word failure because that holds so much weight to a man as well. But if you say like, it was a little slip up, it was a little setback, they understand like, hey, I can grow from this as well. Right? In fact, modeling imperfection may even be more helpful. A father saying, I had a rough day, I was stressed, I talked with someone about it. That sends a powerful message to the young male as well. So, then let's end with practical strategies. Number one, focusing on connection before correction. Boys are far more likely to open up when they feel understood. Lead with curiosity rather than criticism. Another thing, notice behavioral changes. Pay attention to shifts in sleep, appetite, motivation, like I talked about as well. Even body language, school performance, friendships, mood changes often tell an important story. If you can hear their tone of voice or they just keep on saying, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, slowly just open up like, hey, like, so what's going on though? Just letting them know that you are here for them. Creating opportunities, not interrogations. Many boys talk more when conversations just feel natural and free. Look for opportunities instead of demanding discussions. Speaking as which, for when I was a teenager, I would hate sometimes when my parents would be like, "No, you got to really tell me what's going on." It's like they will tell you. They will tell you. And the biggest thing that they know in their mind and in their heart is like, hey, someone is caring for me. Someone is looking out for me. Not just because of simply of what they're doing and what they're providing me, but more so providing me a space to just talk, a space to feel cared and loved for. Normalizing mental health care. Gretchen talked about, you know, the stigmas of like manning up or like, oh, guys shouldn't talk about their emotions. Couldn't be farther from the truth. Talk about therapy the same way you would talk about visiting a doctor, coach, or tutor. It's support, not a sign of weakness. And I also may add as well with the guys, we love to, play sports or do things with our hands. I know a lot of times guys will say like, well, I'm going to go to the gym to relieve stress, or I'm going to go here to, build muscle. Same thing with going to therapy. You're providing a better brain muscles and everything. And last but not least, of course, staying patient. Boys don't always communicate in an adult timeline. Sometimes trust develops slowly. Keep showing up, keep listening, keep creating opportunities for connection.
Thank you so much for joining us today.